So, what do you do when somebody wants to take credit for your work, or when somebody does steal the credit for your work? So, when someone takes the credit for your work, it's irritating. Honestly, it's a little confusing. We start thinking, did everyone just give him or her credit, and I am now invisible and had nothing to do with the project? That's how we feel. But here's the truth, and what we want to talk about today is how do you deal with that? Um, it isn't the end of anything. It's just a moment. We get caught up in it. We really build up these moments into something bigger than they are. But the main thing is, how do you get control right now and take control when this has happened to you and prevent it? That's even better in the future. So, welcome to the Company of One podcast. I am Dale Callahan, and around here we help high earners and stop depending on their employers for their income. Taking control of your income. But once you think like a business owner, you are back in control, and now you are controlling not only your income but your life and everything. So whether you're working for a big company or whether you're trying to move out and do something on your own and growing your own thing, you need to get control. So that's what we're talking about today. And specifically, we're going to deal with the single issue of, today, just this time of year. We're going to do with a single issue of someone is stealing your work or taking control of your work. A common thing, one I just talked about with a client the other day, and it disrupted his world. And so we want to think about how to deal with this. So let's start first. Let's talk about the fear we have. So I'm going to walk you through a couple of things here. I'm going to walk you through some steps of how to deal with this and how to get ahead of it. But I want to be real for a minute. We think when this happens, and if it hasn't happened to you, you're either just a super giving person, or you are not awake, or maybe you have just entered the workplace. But I think even in school this happens to us, right? Someone takes credit for our work, and it feels like this emotional punch. And there's all these things going on, right? They're getting ahead of my effort. My boss is going to think they did everything and I did nothing, which is, it's a double-edged sword. They did all the work. I did nothing. I mean, it's plus for them, negative for me. If I don't jump in right now, and this is where we get panicked, I'll get overlooked. And it feels unfair and feels embarrassing. It feels threatening. I get it. Feeling overlooked, none of us wants to feel overlooked. So today we're going to deal with it head on. What's really happening behind the scenes, what puts you back in control, and how to prevent it. And I really like the how to prevent it. So, and also let's back up a little bit, because we get really busy complaining about the corporate environment, our current leadership, everything. We'll place blame in all kinds of places of why this happens. But let's face it, it happens on the job, no question. But it happens in nonprofits. If you're part of a nonprofit or a volunteer organization and you go in there and spend time, somebody else is going to step in and take credit over and over. It happens in the church, which is a lot of volunteer activity in itself. But I'm going to point that one out because we would think this doesn't happen in a church, but it happens there too. So, and whether it's intentional that it happens or just so happens that John got the credit and you didn't, it doesn't matter. You feel the same way. So first, I want to start. Part one here is let's understand what is going on. It's hard to fix the problem, and if it's happening to you right now, or if you're listening to this because it's just happened to you, I get it. We're going to get there. How do you deal with that moment? But you really want to think about how do you deal with this moment, and how do you get ahead of this? Because we know who these people are that tend to get the credit, whether they try to or not. Some people are just given credit all the time, and they don't try to go get it. We just always assume John is the one that gets the work done. So how do you get ahead of it? But understanding some of this is first, why it is happening. Now, it feels personal, but it has nothing to do with you usually. I mean, there are times that it's an attack on you, but usually you are just the, your collateral damage, and it has nothing to do with you. It's just it's the situation, it's the people involved. It's human behavior. And at the root of this, and so if you watch the last or listen to the last episode when we talked about um, micromanagement, and I said much of micromanagement is insecurity. Let me just go and just right here. Much of this happening and somebody stealing your work is insecurity. Now, it's a little bit of your insecurity. So let's be honest about that. But it's definitely the insecurity of the person who, if they're intentionally stealing credit for your work, it's their insecurity. And it may be a little bit of your leadership insecurity. So there's all this stuff. And by the way, the insecurity we have as human beings is most of our problems. So if you go back to the what is the book's name? The Five Dysfunctions of a Team. Number one issue is trust. And insecurity is just built into that, and it causes all kind of things. So why do people take credit? So I'm gonna dive into some research type stuff instead of Dale's opinion, Dale's experiences. But my experience is pretty much in your experience is probably going to fit with this research. But we need to look at it objectively. So first, the first reason it happens, based upon research in organizational psychology, is the drivers are fear. People are afraid of being overlooked and irrelevant, or maybe exposed. So identity protection, being seen as capable, makes someone matters more to some people than actually being capable. Right? So being seen as capable matters more than actually learning how to be capable. It's an identity issue, insecurity. Insecurity about competence. They feel outmatched. And oftentimes when we are at work, we feel like everybody's better than us. And so even if you're not the one stealing credit, and by the way, many of us who get mad at this may have found ourselves knowingly or unknowingly having stolen credit before. Yes, I said that. We probably have done that. I think I've done that. I can probably point to some points where I was at least taking too much credit for things, and it wasn't really intentional. But I think there is insecurity about competence especially when you are on a team that you feel like everybody's better than you, and oftentimes if you are on great teams, this is a normal thing. There is zero sum. Number 4 is zero sum thinking. If he gets recognition, I get nothing. There's a limited amount of recognition to go around. Zero sum thinking. The lack of clarity. And this one now moves to the ownership issue or the leadership issue, is when ownership isn't defined. When we're on a team, and John, you've got this part of the activity, when it's not defined, things get fuzzy, and this happens. And you'll see that's going to be a big one in several of these situations. So the problem, sometimes it's the person, sometimes it's the culture, sometimes it's both. But now let's think about the leaders. Let's because what we're worried about here is we're saying, somebody has stolen my credit, and what we're worried about is what do the leaders think? Whoever the leaders are, whether it's the actual boss, whether it's the leaders of the project, whatever that matters, who are they? What do they actually see? And we want to believe, and I was doing research for this before, trying to make sure it was not just my opinions, and asking some of the AI platforms about this, and it was like, well, leaders always see the truth, and this is what the platforms were saying. I was thinking that's not true. Leaders don't always see the truth. We like to believe that they do. And so when I dug a little deeper into some of the research, no, leaders don't always see the truth. My research confirmed my experience. Uh, Leaders are often distracted, overloaded, and focused on their own goals. And boom, get that right here. That's what happens. When we're working for a team, and this is all kinds of problems here. When we're working for a team and where you are working for a leader, I was just talking to somebody over LinkedIn, and we were having this discussion. When we're working for a leader, we want to think the leader is taking care of and managing the team. No, the leader is busy managing their boss, right? And so if they're the owner of the company, well, then their boss is their customers or their investors. There's always a boss, right? So they're distracted. So are they paying attention to the details of who did what? Probably not. They're probably not. They might not be paying attention to the project at all. They may not even care. They may not even care about the work that got done or whether it got done or not. But that doesn't mean matter to you because you feel violated. You feel like somebody stole your work. So now, so this is where leaders are. Some leaders do notice, and I'll say some leaders notice who delivers consistently. Some leaders don't notice at all, ever. Some leaders reward the loudest person, not the most competent. We see that a lot. And yes, occasionally the leader themselves is the one who stole the credit. That said, occasionally, I might go a little bit bigger than that. But so we're seeing we're in an imperfect situation where we got people that are around us that may be better than us, that may not. We have people that are insecure. We have leaders that are disconnected. We have lack of true accountability of who ownership, who owns what part of things. Just it's a perfect mix for things to get stolen. And I'm gonna just say this again. You may not like to hear this if you're in this situation. Sometimes it's not stolen intentionally. Sometimes the person that you feel like stole credit doesn't even know that they did that. They don't even realize matter of fact, they may argue that they didn't do that, and maybe they didn't. Because let me just tell you, the person that's insecure, one of the people that's insecure, is me, and the other one is you. Just given, I have yet to meet somebody that I can't dive down and find insecurity, and the louder, the more in control and command a person appears, the deeper and more intense their insecurity usually is the case. So, because I've had lots of conversations with these loud, boisterous, powerful people, and they crumble like little children when you have a deep conversation with them, because you're human. Right. So we see this leadership issue. So I'm sitting here dealing with something's being stolen from me, and my leadership is imperfect. So how do we respond right now? So let's talk about right now. This is happening to you right now. If you are listening to this or watching this because this has just happened, what do you do at this moment? Number one, don't overreact. And I got to say this a little stronger because we're like, what does that even mean? Don't overreact. I'm not overreacting. Don't act at all. Just shut up. You want to go flying off the handle. You want to go screaming at the boss. You want to go screaming at this person. You want to send a nasty email. Smile and just keep your mouth shut. Because your nature is going to be to overreact. You're going to make more out of this than what it is. And if you are the only one that recognizes that this has happened and nobody else even sees it as an issue, and I don't mean the credit has been stolen, but what if the project, nobody cared about it? There's 4 people on the team and you were one of them and nobody cared about the project really? And John over here got all the credit. The boss doesn't really care. everybody's fine. No, nobody cares. The boss doesn't even see John as a hero here, or that you're left out. There's no judgment being made at all, except you're judging John for taking the credit. Now, when you start speaking up and screaming about it, the judgment flips immediately from John taking credit and stealing credit. And I didn't care about this project at all. Nobody cared. And suddenly it's you. You're a problem. And that's exactly the way you would view it if you were the leader and somebody starts screaming that somebody took credit. It's like a bunch of children. Somebody took my toy. Oftentimes the person screaming the loudest is the problem. And so you don't want to become the problem. And the minute you start overreacting, you start looking defensive, you start looking petty, you create unnecessary conflict. Because again, a lot of projects nobody cares about. Now, you may think about, well, there's this high visibility project. It may be high visibility to you. And it may have been really, really important to you because you poured your heart and soul into it. But let's face it, a lot of things we pour our heart and soul into don't matter to other people. So, and what happens is now when you go defensive and when you start or taking the offense against it, you start giving that credit taker, the one who stole the credit, if you will, you give them more power. Because now the focus is on your reaction, not the work itself. You've poured your heart and soul into something, and all everybody's going to remember is that you had a duck fit about it. That's exactly not what you want to happen. So your wisest move here, if you are in this right now, stay calm. Stay calm. Don't fight it. Certainly don't fight it head on. We'll talk about some damage control things here in a second. But you want to just as if nothing happened. And it doesn't mean you need to don't write the email. Go put in your personal journal if you need to. Go outside somewhere where nobody can see you and scream. Go do all that kind of stuff. But when you're there, nothing happened. So if it was intentional and they came after you and they speared you, that John came in and stole your credit and speared you, and he wanted to make you mad and he wanted to rile you up, don't let him. Smile and move on. Because if that was his goal, that's the worst possible thing that could happen to him. Now he's really worried. But if it wasn't the goal and you've built this into something in your head that it's bigger than it really is, which often we do, then it doesn't matter. The only thing they're going to see is your reaction. So stay calm. Think about something else. Keep smiling. And if you need to, just pull yourself away from the crowd because you have a hard time faking it. I get that. So, all right. So that's why what's happening. That's what's going on with the leadership. There's insecurity. There's lack of communication. There's lack of responsibility. And all these things make the perfect storm, and this happens. And so the other thing is to remember when you're kind of dealing with this it's not the last time it's going to happen. And so when it does happen, when things happen like this to me, it helps me to think about, when have I done this? Because you probably have. I can almost guarantee you have. Not intentionally necessarily, but maybe you did. Think about that. What was the time? So, all right. So that's kind of the background. Let's move into part 2 here. How do you take back control? Because that's where this is really about. This is really about control, and it's not control necessarily of the project or the team or the company or the boss. It's control of you. How do you get back control? When someone takes your credit, you have these two instincts of call it out or shut down, and you stew on it. I've already said don't do those things. They make things worse. So research and organizational behavior, and this came from multiple research groups that so everything, I'm not going to call them out because we don't really care, but they come from, Wharton School and Harvard Business Review and things like that. But the most effective responses are calm, fact-based, and future-focused. Remember this line: where do we go from here? Where do we go from here? Anytime you're in a tense situation, think about, where do we go from here? I was having this other conversation with somebody about, trying to get to the bottom of a source of conflict. One of the other things in the book, or I think the second thing in the book, the 5 dysfunctions of the team. Number 1 is trust, and I think number 2 is the avoidance of conflict. We don't want to have conflict. Conflict is normal. Conflict can be healthy. But a lot of times when there's conflict, we want to go back. What's the reason? Or what's going on? That's not always healthy to try to dig down to the cycle. Everybody needs to see their shrink and sit down on the couch. No. Conflict should be a normal part of an organization, because you should have a bunch of different people with different ideas. And together, when you can work as a team, you get better things done. We don't like that. We want to be the only one making it happen, but that conflict is normal. We don't need to go. What we need to be thinking about is the future. And so one of the things that people do in companies is they will go back trying to figure out what caused the conflict. And that's usually a terrible thing. Instead, where do we move from here? We had this conflict. Okay, let's work our way through this. Where do we move forward? And that's the mindset you should be in here. Where do you move forward? So let's talk about some control moves. Some under how do you take back control? This has happened to you. You need to get some control of what's happening. So let's do a couple of different things. Is number 1, the control move 1 is create a simple factual update. So this has happened to you. Credit has been stolen for a lot of work that you have done. First and foremost, take deep breaths, stay calm, don't say anything, think about the future. So what moves do you take that's moved toward the future? Studies show that leaders notice people who communicate progress, right? If you start talking about the fight, you're talking about the conflict. That's not progress. Leaders notice who complains, not in a good way. So after a credit grab, here's a strategy that has been very effective for many people. So your credit has been stolen. Send a short update. In emails, bullet points, not a diatribe, just some very simple bullet points. Here's what we completed, not the conflict. Here's the project that was completed. Here were the decisions we made. And here is what is happening next. Now, you're focused on the future, and you've done a couple of things. You're kind of acting as the team note taker, communicator, which is not usually the job the leader wants, right? But it is a leader move, because the person who communicates, and it communicates effectively and simply, is the leader. Now, they may not be the one getting all the stuff done, but the boss is going to see, oh, here's these 3 bullet points. This team did this, and okay, here's what they're going to do next. That's what your boss is taking to the meeting. They're not going to take a big giant 5-10 page summary of the project. They're not going to do that. They don't have time for that. They're going to take a couple of bullet points of what happened. Thanks, Sally, for sending this to me. All right. So you're unemotional. You think about an unbiased news reporter. And I realize that's an oxymoron, right? Unbiased news reporter. We don't have those, and we probably never did. But that you want to think about, I'm just cold stating the facts. Do not mention anybody's name in a negative fashion, period. The credit takers, yours, or anybody else. Nothing Nothing negative. And if you need to do this, write this little bullet point, put it in a chat GPT or something and say, hey, I want to send this as factual information to the boss. Is there anything in here that would be taken negative about somebody? And you may have to do that. I do that quite often because my tone in an email or my tone in a text message or something is sometimes different than I want it to be. So just you're stating the facts. So research again shows people who regularly share factual updates are seen as higher performers. So this is a one-off thing I'm talking about, but get in the habit of that. Regularly sharing factual updates, not complaints. The boss gets plenty of complaint emails of all the things that are wrong, all the things he or she should be doing. That's not helpful. Just give me the facts, because again, when I go to a meeting, oh yeah, well here's 3 points. Here's what we're working on with that team. That's all they got. That's all they need. That's all they want. So that's control move number 1, a factual update. Control move number 2, tie yourself to the results, not the drama. People remember outcomes. They don't even remember task, right? We did all this work over here. Yeah, but what was the outcome? All we care about. Oh, we got 3 more customers out of this. The problem got resolved and the customer was notified. That's all we care about. We don't care about there's 10,000 hours of work went into this, that code was written. Nobody cares. I remember somebody telling me one time we had a software company and I was explaining the importance of software company, and this guy pulls me aside and says, they don't care if you hire a whole bunch of individuals from China or India to sit there and do the grunt work, or if you write code to do it. They don't care. They want the results. And that's what they want. They want the outcomes. So be outcome focused. For example, sending in your updates, cycle time is down by 18% because of the changes we made last week. There's 2 things. Data. We love data. Even if it's simple, it doesn't seem to mean anything to you. We love the numbers. We made the changes we made. Very different than the changes I made. There's conflict in the I. The changes we made. You don't have to worry about who we is. That doesn't matter. You are the communicator. Customer response time is dropped because of the new workflow. Okay. So now if it's just you involved in the team and there's nobody else, then it can be an I. But generally speaking, we is a good thing to say. So you're anchoring, you are anchoring yourself to improvement. And that's what we care about. We care about the improvement. So leaders consistently trust the person who delivers outcomes. The control move. So a status update. What was it? Move number 1. Where did move number 1 go? Oh, I'm on the wrong page. So move number 1 was a simple factual update. Move number 2 is focus on the results. And again, this is still update information. Control move number 3, ask one clarifying question. Now, I love this. This is a super, super powerful technique. I accidentally stumbled into this one day. I like to call this question people to the level of their incompetence, but that's too many words. So clarifying questions maybe is better. But remember in your head, question people to the level of their incompetence. When you hear somebody boastering and somebody's in a meeting and they're saying something really stupid and you're like, that doesn't make sense at all. They don't know what they're talking about. Then this is a powerful technique, and it's a very powerful technique when somebody has stolen credit. So you don't challenge someone directly. So say you're in a meeting, John is taking your credit over here. This is John's fault today. It's all on John. John is taking the credit from the meeting, and there may be you and a couple other people that are like, hey, that's not accurate. You don't want to go bold and say, that's not true, John. You don't want to call John a liar in front of people. It doesn't work. I've done it. It's bad for you. Trust me. you want to be more tactful. So don't challenge them directly. Ask them a question that only the person who did the work would know. So, for instance, hey John, what was that one constraint? What did we run into along the way when we were doing step number 3? Now, if John didn't do the work, John probably doesn't know the answer. And at this point, John's probably going to defer because now you've called him out. And you're not calling him out, you're trying to discuss the project, communicate to the boss or whoever you're in the meeting with. So John is now like, well, I don't remember. Sally, I think you were involved in that part. What was that? So John is by nature, now he might just blow smoke, but that's bad for John. But he's going to probably defer to somebody on the team that did that. Now, he may do it in a way that tries to take credit, but it's going to be obvious that somebody else did the work. And, another thing is, hey, which option did we rule out? Maybe John is doing the update because oftentimes the credit stealer is the one that does all the talking. And you say, hey, John, by the way, can you let the boss over here know what was the one? We had some options. What did we rule out and why? I think that's important. You're still putting John in control, but John doesn't have control because John probably doesn't know the answer to those questions. So these are really, really powerful things. I have found, so let me just go on a sidebar for just a minute. When somebody's running their mouth in a meeting and they don't know what they're talking about. So I had this situation in a meeting that, and this guy, the boss loved him, right? He was the golden child. And he talked a lot. He was a smart guy, but oftentimes he didn't know what he was saying. And he was in this thing and we were about to spend a bunch of money. And he was rattling off, hey, we ought to do this one thing. And the boss was like, oh, yeah, that'd be great. Why don't we do that? And it was like $1 million Apple thing. But that's how we made decisions sometimes. So I was like, hey, we'll go with John again since we're picking on John. John, how does that work? Because I knew this was stupid. This is a stupid idea. And he rattled off, oh, well, it does this, A, B, and C, And I said, well, how does it get, what does A do? And I was just being curious, right? And partly I was curious because I really didn't know, but I knew it was stupid. So I wanted to reveal stupidity. And so by the time I got to the third question, I kept asking a little bit deeper. The third question, John said, I really don't know. I just read about this before we came into the meeting. I got all excited about it. It was cool. John was legitimately excited about this new technology and this new tool, but he didn't really know any data. And we didn't need to be making a decision on that. So he admitted his incompetency here. And I didn't look like the bad guy, and he didn't look like the bad guy. And it was like, okay, well, maybe we need to study this. And it turns out it was a dumb idea, which I pretty much knew in the first place, but I could have been wrong too, right? So this is control move number 3, is asking this clarifying question. And if you want to go to question people to their level of incompetence, it's harder to remember, but it's just funnier to me. Control number 4 is reset the meeting frame. So this was a Carnegie Mellon study where they talked about they call it the first mover advantage. You take control by speaking early in the next meeting. So if you've lost control of a meeting or something, don't try to bulldoze. But in the next meeting or in the next scenario, say, let me walk everybody where we are and so we've already completed. And have some reason to do that. Like, hey, I was just updating the documents here, and let me walk people through what I've documented, if that's all right. And so you can do this in a very friendly way, but it positions you as the driver of moving things forward. And again, the person who does the grunt work of note-taking and keeping records, sometimes we consider that project management, but I don't mean necessarily the project manager, but you're just note-taking. You're going to get some control here. So control move number 5 is strengthen allies through real credit. So this one is contrary to, now if you are dealing with it right now, this is going to be tough for you, but hang in here because this is important, because you are looking forward. If John stole your credit today, John probably has a history of doing this, and John will do it tomorrow. Right? Do we have a history there? Are you nodding your head? Yes, yes. Very often that's the case, and we know who it is. We knew who it was when we got involved with them, but we didn't maybe have any choice whether John was on the team or not. But give credit publicly where it's deserved. If John is taking credit, the class move is to say, John did a great job talking to the customer. You don't have to give John credit for everything, but give John credit for the part that he got credit for. Not fake compliments, so don't make up something John did, but real contributions. Where did he really contribute? Where did she really add value to the team? The weird thing is when you compliment somebody, they almost always reciprocate. And suddenly you got credit where there was no credit for you at all. So you kind of lay it on a little heavy because your instinct is to not give them any credit for anything because they're a stupid idiot that's just stealing your credit. Right? That's how we're thinking. But give them some credit, and it will change the entire game. So research showed. Now this is research. Now I don't know how we do this research. I guess we get involved in team meetings. Giving legitimate credit increases your influence, not only now, but with John in the future. That will be a remembered moment because everybody else knows what John did, and you gave John credit. So control move number 6. Control your emotional response. We've already talked about this because what they're going to judge is your emotional response. You look insecure, you look small, people remember your behavior more than what actually happened. So just stay calm. Control move number 7. So this is a bunch of things, but I think you see there's a trend here. End with ownership and a forward momentum signaling, if you will. Every interaction should end with, here's what I am working on next. So when you're in this conflict, and maybe this has happened, and John's getting all the glory, okay, give John the glory, whatever happens here. But you want to end it with, okay, here's what we're doing next. Take control of the next step right now. In a friendly way, but establish yourself as an owner. Now, these moves are things that work after the credit has already been taken. I've given you 7 of them. I won't repeat them I'll go back over them very quickly. A factual update, move number 1. Tie yourself to results, move number 2, which is also about updates. Move number 3, ask the clarifying question. Move number I got my pages all wrong. Move number 4, reset the meeting frame. Move number 5, give real credit. Move number 6, control your emotional response. And move number 7, end with moving forward. End with ownership. So these things work. These things really have. Now we'll put show notes in here into the blog post and link to that too, because if you're in that situation, these things work. You're not look. You're just trying. These are people. They're all people. You're trying to get some control back. No matter what you do, if you take any of these. Now I'm gonna talk here in just a second about how to get ahead of this in the future, but no matter what you do, if you do none of these moves, if you just keep your mouth shut and move forward, it's better than what your emotional response wants it to be. That's the worst thing you can do. Oh, sorry. All right, so let's flip the script now. Let's talk about part 3 of this today is when you expect a credit taker, how do you preempt the problem? This cold is getting me. So some people have a pattern. Like I've said, we know John, we know Sally. They're always going to steal our credit. whether they mean to or not. Sometimes they're just vindictive, credit stealing people. Sometimes they are just the, boss's winning little child there that wins everything, and they're the go-to person because there's a weakness in the leadership. It doesn't matter. You just know that things are going to get there, and the situation gets there, and it's going to spin out of control, and John and Sally get all the credit, and you and maybe some other people feel left out. So here's a couple of things that have really and truly helped, and this is a leadership role, and you're a leader. So everything that I do here with a company of one is put you in a leadership role. Now, the hardest person for you to lead is the one looking in the mirror, the one you're talking to, right? But everything I'm talking about right now is you leading you. And when you start leading you, then you lead other people. So whether you're working for a company, whether this is your own company, don't expect just because it's your own company, you're free of drama. You just own the drama at a different level. So we all have this. So we're going to see these same kind of personalities no matter what we are doing. And again, it doesn't even matter if it's a work thing. It may be a nonprofit activity. It may be a thing at church. You're going to see these. So how do you get around this? Clear expectations. Early involvement and defined ownership. So what this means is when a project or a team have clear expectations of who's going to do what, who owns what, and everybody's involved early on, and this is stated early on, people usually don't cross the boundaries. It's kind of like being a bully, right? One thing we know about bullies don't usually want to pick a fight with somebody who might fight back. It's just not fun for them. It's not fun to be a bully if the guy's going to punch me back in the nose, right? There's no win here for me. And it's going to hurt. It's going to hurt me and him. I'm not worried about him, but I'm worried about me. So the same thing is happening here is when you set clear expectations, when you are very clear with people, they usually don't cross the line because there are clear expectations set, and now you have a clear. It's like the speeding ticket, right? Here's what the speed sign says. You should be doing 70, and you were doing 80 per my machine here. It's clear. I don't like it, but what can I say? So the preemptive move number one is define your roles up front. Now, if you are not in charge, this is a little harder to do. But when roles are vague, people jump in and claim credit later, and they don't always do it intentionally. Because when it's vague, I know people that will be on a team, and unless you set very clear definitions, they think it's their job to do it all. And they will. They will go off and do everything, right or wrong. And the rest of the team will just be sitting there back there watching because they're like, a bull in a china shop. There's no getting in their way. And that's because there was no clear expectation set up, and this person just took it and ran with it. And it's not even, it's an insecurity that they have, but it's not that they're trying to steal. That person I'm talking about, it's not that they were trying to steal from you. They just feel like they've got something to prove themselves. And so by default, they steal from you, and they don't mean to. So you fix it early. So in meetings, if nobody's defined some things and you're not in control of the meeting, take control. Like, okay, we got all these things to do. I need to be really, really, really clear about what is my role. What am I doing? What are you doing, Sally? What are you doing, Sue? What are we doing? And you do that out of a sense of, I only have so much time. I know I need to know what I'm expected to do. And usually when you ask this, sometimes it makes a meeting go a little bit longer. Sometimes it takes a little more work to clarify this. But when you do it and you walk out of the room, you've got clarity. And most people appreciate it, even the people that don't speak up. So it doesn't have to be formal. It doesn't need to be this big documented process. But studies show that clear ownership cuts political behavior by 70%. 70. Clear ownership cuts down all this drama by 70%. A little bit of time up front, especially when you know what's going to happen, will cut down your drama that much. So once it's defined, by the way, what you want to do is then go back and send the email to the team. Hey, just to be clear, here's our things, and do it immediately. Immediately. Here's to be clear. Here's John's going to do these 3 little bullets. Sally's going to do these 3 little bullets. It doesn't have to be spelled out in something. Just bullets, simple scan. So if you had any misunderstanding in the meeting, if anybody else had a misunderstanding about the meeting and the project, you get immediate feedback, and they're like, no, you got these things wrong. That's fine, as long as it's documented, and you've got a chain of documentation now. And now you own your part. Hopefully that's good to you. And somebody else owns their part. So preemptive move number 2 is give the credit taker, the one who is going to steal credit, a real visible task or multiple tasks. Credit takers thrive in the shadows. Right? They don't really want any specific thing to do, and they'll kind of sit over here and they'll grab a little bit of this and they'll grab a little bit of that, and they'll do the stuff that looks fun. They'll show up at the meetings where there's visibility. They won't show up at the meetings where all the grunt work has to get done. And yeah, they thrive there. And so when you pin them to the table, and doing the first step will help this, but you want to make sure in this move that they have something to do. They have a specific deliverable, specific dates, specific outcomes they're responsible for. If they do it, great. Then you pour on credit. If they don't do it, you don't really need to say anything. Everybody sees exactly what happens. So either way, you're staying in control here. So preemptive move number 3 is to set the tone early in meetings. Again, you get so much control, and nobody wants to do this stuff, right? Most people, when we're coming to meetings, nobody wants to be at the meeting. We complain about the projects. We hate meetings in general. So you become a hero by taking some control of the meeting. So, excuse me. So what we're going to do here is, before we get started, and this is how you're going to, but hey, before you get started, here's the plan. Who's driving what? Like if you've come in and you've given a project or you've talked through it, you want to take immediate control. One of the things I do in going to meetings that I am going to, even if I'm not in control, I will ask the person who called the meeting, hey, what's on the agenda? Because I hate going to meetings where there's no purpose. What's on the agenda? And oftentimes I'll say, what's our desired outcome? Because if we can get it done in 15 minutes, our meeting's over, right? So oftentimes there's not one. And sometimes by doing that very move, I force them to do it. Sometimes they'll say, well, I don't have one. And so I'll suggest when I know they don't have one, I will suggest an agenda. And oftentimes they will then take my agenda and send it out. But now I'm in control of the agenda, or I at least know what's on the agenda. I can suggest things to be on the agenda. And, so you can just suggest. I want to just start the meeting with me asking some questions about the clarity, because I need to be clear about what we're doing. That's fine. And most people are okay with that. It's not bossy. It's actually more curious. I'm trying to get clarity in my head what I'm responsible for. I have a person that's in our program right now, and she's brilliant at this. She is a true leader. She takes control, but she looks like the person who's just a member of the team, who's just trying to serve, or she thinks of herself that way, and she communicates that way. But everybody else knows this girl's in control. not her title. And she's never offensive. Everybody likes her, but she does this. She's like, I'm just trying. I need to get clarity. What are we doing? So she speaks up enough, but she'll speak up at the beginning, usually when nobody else wants to speak, and says, "Okay, here's what I think we're doing. Tell me what I need to do. Tell me who needs to do what." And she might even suggest somebody, right? Because you're really good at this. Can you do this? And not bossy, not the title, but always in control. And by the way, always respected. Never gets drama. So you're set, but by doing this, you're setting kind of a lane, or you're setting the lane markers. And again, if you remember back, what we said is usually these things happen because of lack of clarity of who's responsible for what. So preemptive move number 4 is have calm, direct conversations. You're not going to like this one, but this one works. No one wants to be confronted. No one wants to confront people. And this is weird. We talk about things, but it's so rare. I mean, you'll have the jerk that goes in and says, I'm going to go confront this guy and go yell at him and scream at him and cuss at him. I don't mean that. Pull this person aside, the person that you know is going to be the trouble, and say, let me make sure we're clear on the roles so leadership sees the full picture and both of us can win. I mean, it's a simple word, right? There's no accusation. There's no drama. Like, you always steal credit. Don't say that. I just want to make sure both of us can win. I want to make sure we have clear roles here, what's going on. And usually they will agree to that. And you have set some powerful words in motion. Most people straighten up because there's clarity. And I have done this numerous times, and it's weird because I think I'm going into a confrontational thing. I think I'm going to be confronted back. And it's almost like they appreciate it. Like they've been given a real role, and they've been some guide marks, you know. And when you're the person who calls people out on things, you move to a higher level of respect, especially when you don't do it in public. They respect that. So, all right, we're going to get to the last one here before I totally lose my voice. Document things lightly as you go. Again, paper trails over email and things like that are very powerful. So just a simple paper trail. Okay, now preemptive move number 5 is document lightly as you go. Now this is, of course, future projects, ongoing projects. Not a giant paper trail. We don't need a bunch of notes, but simple things about what decisions were made, who owns what, next steps. Sending something like that to the team after each meeting. Again, we walk away from meetings and nobody does that because we're going to another meeting, right? We're just busy. So it's appreciated. Here's the things to walk away from. Here's John's going to do this, Sally's going to do this. And this is oftentimes a little detail of after the meeting. So this protects everyone, including you, right? But it protects everybody else too. So, all right. Now, those are a couple of things. There's a lot of stuff here. This is a long episode because this is a difficult subject. And I did want to deal with, hey, what to do right now. But the future stuff is most important. If it's happening to you right now, then clearly the right now stuff is where you want to start. So, you can't control, though. So here's the bottom line: you can't control who steals credit. You can't control that somebody's going to steal credit. Doing these things, setting some expectation, doing damage control properly, setting expectations, taking control of your own emotions and your own responses, most important thing you can do. So let me just tell you though, real leaders, they don't win by chasing every piece of credit. That's not the key. You win by staying in control and winning small battles over time. And I don't mean battles against people, but successes for what matters to the company. What matters to the company, what matters to the organization is not usually who got credit for this or that. It's, did the objectives of the company move forward? And you want to win over the people. All right, so your organization, I don't care whether it's, again, the church, whether it is in your company, it's made up of people. And so whether you are doing your own company, you've got your own customers, there's one thing that you're always going to have in common is there's going to be people surrounding everything that you do, and they're crazy, and they're difficult, and there's going to be challenges, and there's going to be conflicts, which is why the book, the five, what have I said? Anyway, the five conflicts of a company. That's not the right title, but anyway, the books I mentioned before is such a popular selling book because it's the common issue. So, all right, if today's episode has helped you, follow the podcast, subscribe on YouTube, share it. If you have anything that we can help you with, you can reach me at dale@dalecallahan.com. We'll see you next time.